Hello, everybody. Welcome to Undefined. I am joined today by Spencer Tweedy. Spencer is a writer, he is a drummer, he is an engineer, producer, he is a man of many talents. He is currently about to embark on some shows with Waxahatchee, is that correct? In the spring
Hmm.
with his
Yep.
dad's band Wilco. And he's had a lot of exciting projects that have come up recently. And I'm so excited to get to talk to Spencer. How are you doing today?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for being on the show. And so when I was doing research, and I have your website pulled up too of all of the music that you've been credited on, I just thought like I knew that you did Waxahatchee, I knew you did stuff with Mavis Staples, and I know that you've done a lot of work on a bunch of different albums, but pulling this up right now, it seems like you are always working. You have stuff from you did the Plains record that came out a couple years ago. You did a bunch of stuff with your dad, your brother. And of course, Waxahatchee, your girlfriend, Case Oats, she just put out a new song. So what are you been focusing on lately? Because you have a lot of stuff. I know you've been doing a lot of things with Waxahatchee. That's been the main group that you've been touring with, and you did Tiny Desk with them, and you were just at the Grammys. So congratulations.
Thanks.
Yeah, so what has been on your plate lately?
Lately, well, the Tweedy Family band has been in the studio working on a record that we started that we've been chipping away at for over a year now, sort of giving it shape and figuring out what exactly we want it to be. We started out this year getting back into that and really giving it our full focus. And then I've also been back on the road with both with Waxahatchee and with Case Oats, the band led by my girlfriend Casey Gomez Walker. And those have been the two main things right now.
That's awesome. And I am really excited to hear about the Tweedy Family Band. I was just listening to Suki Ray as I was getting ready for this again. And, for
Oh,
those who,
nice.
yes, I love it. It's one of my favorites. And for those who might not be familiar, Spencer is in a band with his dad, Jeff Tweedy, and your brother's in the band too, correct? And so you have such an interesting upbringing from my other guests because you were just raised, I'm sure you were just going on the road as young as you can remember. I remember hearing, and I don't know if it was in the Tweety show or in some interview, that your mom used to own a club in Chicago and you used to play the drums back there. How has it been being raised in that environment and picking that up on your own? Was it something that were they encouraging you, or was it a natural thing? You saw the drum kit, it was always around, and then you decided, oh, I like this, and then you kind of took it
Hmm.
upon yourself to make that what you want to do.
Hmm. It was totally unconscious. I was just, I think I gravitated to the drum set before I really had the ability to make decisions or think much about it in any sort of conscious way. Um, I think the main thing is that, yeah, my mom owned a rock club in Chicago that you mentioned called Lounge Acts from 1987 or 89 until 2000 when it was forced to close. And the combination of that and seeing my dad play shows and watching VHS tapes of Wilco music videos or live performances, and I think I can't overstate the influence of my dad being on the road and um uh emulating him as a way to feel closer, which I know might make some people feel really sad. But to me, it's not a sad thing at all. It was like I don't know. I just grew up feeling like the coolest thing in the world that a person can do is play music, and and yeah, it was so it was just kind of it was baked in before I really decided anything about it.
Wow. And so like the Suki Ray album, that's about 10 years old, right? It's like I think it was
Yeah.
2014. So was that
Hmm.
kind of like the first like recorded iteration of the family band? I'm sure there was definitely like concerts and things in the living room or casual, but like when did you and your family decide like, okay, we want to actually make a record and make this our own kind of side project? How did that come about? And then how has that changed as you've gotten older too?
It came about pretty accidentally. My dad had been working on the second album that he was producing for Mavis Staples. For any listeners who don't know Mavis Staples,
Mhm.
hopefully you know may of her, but she's one of the legends of American music, a living legend of civil rights and all sorts of kinds of music, and just like one of the best people to ever grace the planet. And my dad was working, they were beginning work on their second record together, which they intended to be just like a very stripped down duo between the two of them, where my dad
Mhm.
would play acoustic guitar and she would sing. But quickly into that process, they just started experimenting with other instrumentation. And I was in high school at the time and had been coming around the studio to hear what they were working on. And I was also, my school was very close to the studio. And my dad took a shot on just adding a drum part from me to one of the songs. It might have been they were having doing a cover of the Beatles' Revolution.
Oh,
I'm not
awesome.
it might have been the first one, but to tell the truth, I'm not totally sure. And after that, Mavis was into it, and they decided, all right, well, maybe we'll have drums on more of this record. So I ended up drumming on almost all of One True Vine, or yeah, there's maybe one song without drums or something. And then Suki Ray came on the heels of that. Just we basically just didn't stop recording because One True Vine, respecting Mavis's time and stature, we would do a lot of recording to prepare for her to be in the room and make the most of her time when she's there to actually record. So we spent most of that process working just the two of us, along with producer engineer Tom Schick. And then we just continued doing that same exact thing, recording drums and acoustic guitar, just the two of us with Tom, when we finished One True Vine for Mavis, and my dad had just the loose idea of making his first solo record.
Wow, that is so awesome. And that is so inspiring too. And so your brother, he's joined the family band now because I know that
Yeah.
back in, yes, that's awesome. Because for those unfamiliar, during, I think COVID this started that your family would do this thing called the Tweedy Show where your mom would
Hmm.
go live on her Instagram and it would just, she would film you guys. It would be Spencer, his brother Sammy, and Jeff, and you guys would answer questions and then sometimes go into Wilco songs, sometimes cover songs, sometimes Tweety songs. Your brother Sammy would do a lot of the singing, and it
Oh,
sounded
yeah.
beautiful. There's just so many great performances, and I think a lot of them are on YouTube if you want to go back
Hmm.
and watch those. So having him join the band since he wasn't originally on that record, did that kind of come about through that? Like, was singing, is he going to be doing vocals on the record or is he playing
Oh,
instruments?
yeah.
How was it adding
Yeah.
him into the group?
Sammy's playing a lot of synthesizers and singing a lot. Or his two main things are definitely his amazing, beautiful voice and his
Yeah, it's incredible.
and his expertise of electronic instruments.
Wow. And how do you mix like, you're doing the synths and your dad's doing guitar. Well, he's doing the synths, your dad's doing the guitar, you're doing your drums. How do you all like because you're also an engineer and producer. Have you been producing this one or do you kind of take a step back when it's something like this?
I definitely take a step back. I'm not needed to lead as much as when I'm working on a project for a friend who's asked me to fulfill that role. Obviously, my dad is a producer, so
Mhm.
he's providing a lot of direction for everybody. But it is a pretty open field for collaborators in the studio. I should also say on this new record, um, it's not just me and my dad and Sammy. For the first time, we've been incorporating all of our friends who play in the live band, like Liam Kazar and James Elkington and Seema Cunningham and Macy Stewart. So there's a lot of voices in the room, literally and figuratively, and it's a very open process for everybody to try ideas out. Like I think the overarching philosophy is whatever's best for the song is what we do. And that means, my dad is encourages, everybody to try something out. I mean, with that many people in the room, you can't try everything out, but you pick and choose times to say, I really think this might work, and then we'll give it a shot.
Wow. And do you think it kind of inspires you guys creatively, like to have this big group of people versus like, you're not in the living room playing just together, jamming casually,
Mhm.
you have this group of people that you know and that you trust. Does that kind of bring in a new vibe versus like the standard like
Yeah.
family jam session?
It does. I mean, it does that, practically in terms of the palette of sounds that we're able to present because Macy, Seema, Liam, and Jim
Hmm.
have different skills that we don't have, but also I think it it I want to say spiritually provides something else too because it's a little early to say this because the record, we're pretty far still from sharing this stuff with the world. But
Hmm.
um, I think one of the ideas that's floating around in our heads is the idea of modeling and illustrating or living by the idea of collaboration and human beings being in a room with each other and voice and the transcendence of singing. So if we believe in all that stuff, we're just trying to put our money where our mouths are and have all these other people singing together, and we're all singing together all over this record.
Wow, that sounds beautiful. I'm really excited to listen to it. And
Yeah.
you were just with the family band. We were talking about off camera how you were at the you say cameo, right? I always mess it up.
Oh, Kayamo. Kayamo.
Kahamo, sorry. Yeah, I can't.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you were just on that cruise. Did you get to play any of those new songs there? Like what was that like?
Yeah, we didn't have the full band there because it was sort of like a last minute booking. But we had me and Liam and my brother playing with my dad, and we played, I think, like four of the new songs, I think, and it felt great. I mean, sometimes it just feels, new material feel is exciting because it's new material, but I also think that there's a specific quality to these new songs that make them exciting beyond just their newness.
Wow, and I bet it was cool too because you're not just performing them at like a typical concert. You're on a boat, but you're on a boat with a bunch of diehard music fans who I'm sure were really
Yeah,
excited to listen to that. And I bet it was a great
yeah,
experience.
yeah, they were supportive. It's a funny, unusual concert environment, but it's a good one because, like you said, they're really enthusiastic music lovers.
Yeah, and have you played one of those music cruises before? I know there's a whole bunch of them. Was it something like I didn't know if Wilco's done any in the past or
That's the only one we've done, but we've done it two other times before, so it's hard to believe I mean, it still feels like a novelty, weird experience for us because I don't know, we don't think there's a stigma attached to cruises and for whatever reason, and it feels a little bit distant from our identity. But at this point, we've done it three times, and there's nothing but positive. We have nothing but positive things to say about it.
Yeah, I think it's cool. I feel like in the landscape of like live music now, it's almost kind of like a sub-genre, subculture of like festivals. And I feel like,
Mm,
you have things like band run events like, like Solid Sound, what Wilco does every
yeah,
year, or like, a big festival like a Bonnaroo. And then you have, things like that or other
yeah,
band run events. I've seen like certain artists will just like rent out a resort in Mexico. I know Dave Matthews was like an example of an artist that does that. And they'll do like a festival on land. I feel like that's a new thing. It's kind of like over the past 15 years, it's almost been like a niche of, you love music,
hmm
but you want to go out and you want to explore the world. So I personally don't have a stigma behind it because I think it's really
yeah,
cool. I mean, if you're able to go and experience that, I think, that's super fun. And it seems like there's a very passionate group of people that love to do all things. I would want to go on one of those
yeah,
cruises, but it always happens when I'm in school. So maybe when I'm done getting my
yeah,
degrees, then I'll be able to hop on
yeah.
one of those boats at some point.
Maybe a post-graduation
Yes.
gift. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So I also wanted to talk about, I mean, you've had such a busy year already. You were just at the Grammys. Was that your first
Hmm.
time being nominated with Waxahatchee for the Tiger's Blood album?
Yeah. Yeah. It was crazy.
And what was that experience like for you? Because I actually was reading your Substack blog about this before we hopped on the call. So you went when you were a
Mhm.
kid with your
Yeah.
dad and then going again. Like, was that surreal knowing that, like, an album that you've been a part of and that has been a huge hit, by the way. I love that record. Seeing
Thanks.
that, how is that for you personally?
It felt great. It was really cool. I mean, I didn't expect that type of recognition, and I don't think Katie did either. Katie, the who's, the
Mhm.
leader of Waxahatchee. But it felt good. I mean, I can't deny it. It was cool to be part of something that is being recognized that way. We didn't win, but that's
Yeah.
okay. I think that, hopefully, Katie will be back there someday, if not, in the near future. And yeah, it's easy just to crap on award shows, and certainly nobody should set out into their creative life excessively or exclusively focusing on winning awards, but
Mhm.
it is a pretty impactful real it does make a real difference in an artist's life when they're recognized like that, and especially not just for themselves but for everybody they work with and all the people whose salaries they pay. All sorts of, it gets really practical. So there's all sorts of good reasons to be excited about it. But yeah, it was thrilling. And Also to watch the show because we got to see Doechii perform
Yeah.
and Sabrina Carpenter perform, and some really, even the schlockiest stuff. Like I don't stuff that isn't really my cup of tea to listen to all the time. I found myself like emotional watching it because it's just so good. It was so well produced. Like it was really, really entertaining.
Yeah, I bet that must be surreal too. I don't know if you grew up kind of watching those award ceremonies at home, but I definitely did. And I bet, to be in that room, especially, to even like what you just said, to have a work that you helped be a part of, be at this ceremony, to even be honored and on the radar is crazy. And I bet that was
Yeah.
very, very fulfilling. Did you watch the early ceremony too? Because that was your category was in the stuff that happens during the day, right?
Yeah, it was pretty early in the daytime events. So we saw up until our category, and then we did make a graceful exit after the
Mhm.
loss just to go just to go have get a bite to eat and and rest up for attending the all the crazy performances of the evening.
I mean, it's cool that even though your category was earlier in the afternoon, that you were still able to have a good time and enjoy it.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
I think y'all
totally.
deserve, but we know about the Academy.
Well,
Unfortunately, I'm not a
we
member.
we didn't count on anything, so our expectation excuse me, sorry, our expectations weren't hurt so bad.
Yeah, and I want to talk more about that record because you're about to tour with Waxahatchee. So that was the first and only collaborative album that you've done with them, right? And I want
Yeah.
to
Hmm.
hear how you got together with Katie and what was the process of
Hmm.
making that album. And there was a lot of other talented musicians on that. And how was it like to work with them in the studio? And then all of the amazing opportunities that album has brought you guys. I mean, you were on Tiny Desk too. I mean, you were on Tiny Desk with your dad, but you were on Tiny Desk
Hmm.
again, which I think is pretty cool. So yeah, I want to hear more
Yeah.
about that process.
It kind of all starts with Mavis because Katie works with a producer named Brad Cook, who
Mhm.
has produced lots of amazing records,
Yes.
and he's a big fan of One True Vine and If All I Was Black, the two records that I've uh, worked on with Mavis, as well as the Pop Staples record, Mavis's dad, called
Yes.
Don't Lose This. Brad is a huge fan of those albums, and having heard my playing on those records, he asked me to come be a part of Katie's record, the Plains record that she made with Jess Williamson in
Yes.
2021. And so that's where I met Katie Crutchfield for the first time. We made that record, which was very fun. That was in North Carolina in 2021 before vaccines were available. So we had to take a lot of precautions and isolate from just about everybody leading up to that session. Um, and then when Brad and Katie were hatching up plans to make her next Waxahatchee record, they asked me to participate in that too, which I was really thrilled about. And we recorded it in Texas at Sonic Ranch Studios, which is a
Oh, wow. Yeah, I know Sonic
sprawling,
Ranch.
you,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a sprawling, very cool property with lots of different studio buildings on it and amazing equipment. And bands tend to stay in houses on the
Yes.
property, and it's very, very cool and very, very conducive to focused work. We spent 2 weeks recording the record in spring of 2023. And then over the next year, Brad and Katie put all the finishing touches on it and stuff, along with Brad's brother, Phil Cook, who's an amazing multi-instrumentalist, and also Jake Lenderman or MJ Lenderman, who is playing all the lead guitar on the record and singing a lot of background vocals.
Yes, I actually just saw Jake last month here in Oxford. They played Proud Larry's, just like a tiny venue, 200
Oh,
cap,
cool.
and that was awesome. I ran into him after the show and got to talk to him. He's so cool. It's cool to see him, blow
Hmm.
up. Everybody in that club
Yeah.
was singing. It was a pretty insane experience, but it was awesome that he was able to work on that album too.
Yeah. He's a very humble guy, and he's very, very sweet and has a amazing, unique take on songwriting and melody and guitar playing.
Oh, for sure. And I think it's funny that you mentioned Sonic Ranch because now that I'm thinking about it, I feel like that does fit the vibe of the album. Like it does make
Mm,
perfect sense to me that you guys would kind of do it kind of on like a farm on a ranch because it does
yeah.
kind of sonically make sense to me. And I think that's
Yeah.
really cool. Did you stay on the property during that time?
Yeah, we stayed in a house like 100 feet away from the studio. We stayed all of us, me, Phil, Brad, and Jake and Katie stayed in one house together and cooked dinner every night. Katie cooked most of the meals, I think. We ate a lot of tinned fish and delicious salads, and we spent 2 weeks completely live living with each other, spending every waking moment together. So it was a really, really nice, like, great way to get close with some collaborators.
That's so cool. I love hearing the stories behind albums, like to know what the process was, like not just making it, but the friendship and the other aspects of it that go into it. And you've collaborated with a lot of different people. Do you have any like what have been like any tips or just things that have worked the best for you to be able to collaborate with so many different people, but different kinds of music? Like, how do you kind of
Mm.
come across that?
Well, I mean, that's a good question. I mean, the majority of the records that I work on are with people that I tend to know pretty well. Like, for example, Phenome, formerly known as Ohm, where Macy Stewart and Seema Cunningham also taking part in the recording for this new Jeff Tweedy music.
Uh-huh.
I've known them since we were in uh, teenagers, like really, really, really young. Likewise with Seema's brother, Liam Kazar. And so I guess it's a lot, the process is a lot of the time built on that foundation of simply already having known each other. Oop, hi,
Mhm.
this is one of our cats. Um, yeah, we know each other really well. But as far as switching from style to style, I think the same basic things apply no matter what. The most important one to me being like just the importance of being attentive and the importance of listening, and the importance of being led by your sense of what feels good. like you're just physically feeling good with what you're doing and feeling harmonious with everybody around you, that doesn't change no matter what style you're playing. Even if the end result can sound wildly different from style to style, like really, really quiet music and really, really loud music and really busy and really sparse, it's all still, to me, deriving from that exact same uh, basic uh, uh, principle.
Wow, that's awesome. And this kind of ties into that. So you're also a writer, and a couple years ago you put out a book called Mirror Sound. It's when you interviewed different artists, right, about the recording process, the personal recording process. I want to hear a little bit more about that.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that book, it's like a coffee table book about the um the concept of records that people make by themselves or
Hmm.
almost by themselves, where the musician is also the engineer and the producer and so forth. And the idea for that came around when I was actually still in high school, um, because I was getting into self-recording myself and I was listening to Paul McCartney's self-recorded solo albums, and Tame Impala was really, really huge at the time. And I was
Oh
aware
yeah.
that yeah, and I was reading all about Kevin Parker, building his own studio and that huge record lonerism basically being made in a bedroom, and just my world was opening up to the concept of all of these so-called bedroom albums that are like some of the best music anyone has ever made, and yet they made it with 200 bucks and one microphone or whatever. And I just found that so inspiring, and that it always or tended to lead to such interesting results. And so I thought about making a book dedicated to all what that's all about. Not really technically, but more so like as far as how it fits into somebody's lifestyle and and their ability to you know accomplish their creative goals despite life being really hard and complicated. And yeah, we ended up making the book in 2019, and then it came out in 2020, in October 2020, which probably wasn't great from a sales perspective because it was a lot, we couldn't do a book tour or anything like that, but it did kind of
Mhm.
make the book feel even more relevant because everyone was buying microphones, or every musician was figuring out how to keep on making what they want to make despite, traditional studios being closed or whatever. Um, so yeah, the book came together. It has a lot of really great musicians in it. People that I really look up to agreed to be a part of it.
Wow, and I'll put the link to the book in the bio the description of the YouTube video so people can check it out. Yeah, I
Oh,
think
sure.
that is so interesting. And from did you learn a lot talking to other people? Because I'm sure at that point you were already recording solo by yourself. And did you kind of pick up new tips or kind of see a new outlook on it after talking to all those people?
Yeah, a little bit. The one I always think of over and over again is just I had never realized how many people record drums for drums first when they're recording every instrument by themselves. And it's like counterintuitive because I am a drummer myself, and so somebody might assume that I would have done the same thing,
Mhm.
but truthfully, I'd never done that. And then I was hearing from musicians like Ty Segall or Bob Bruno from Best Coast who were
Mhm.
talking about when they were recording songs by themselves, they record drums first, and just blew my mind because to me, as a drummer, I always want to play along to an acoustic guitar, so I play acoustic guitar first if I'm recording everything, and no shortage of other tiny little practical tips, but that always sticks out to me as the most surprising take thing I learned.
And so you mentioned when you were in high school, this idea of like self-recording kind of came about. When did you finally set that up? Did you have like something at your family home, like something in your room or a spare room? Did you
Hmm.
build that yourself and learn how to engineer and produce? I want to learn more about that side of you too, because you also do a lot of engineer and producing work as well as drumming and
Oh
guitar.
yeah. Yeah, well, I had figured out that there was a way to plug an iPhone into a computer and use the iPhone's microphone as an external microphone.
Mhm.
There was this app called 4Track that let you do that. I don't even know if I'm sure it's possible, but I don't even know if that's still around anymore or if it's possible. And I started experimenting with recordings using that method around 2009, where I was multi-tracking and just, GarageBand like everybody, or like lots of young people do, lots of people do, using that one iPhone microphone. And I had also done a little bit of that even at an even younger age, like, just using the built-in loops from
Yeah.
GarageBand or whatever. Um, but that that got me started, and then I I borrowed a really, really very, very nice preamp microphone preamplifier and compressor that my dad had bought for himself to teach himself how to record kind of elevated demos. But he ended up, not using very much because he prefers to stay solely focused on musical instruments themselves rather
Mhm.
than like some of the technical equipment for recording. Um, or maybe that's just what he's ended up doing because my brother and I commandeer all of the recording equipment he buys. I don't
Yeah.
know. But I ended up borrowing that, and that's what really made it click for me that you don't have to be a professional, you don't even have to be a grown adult to connect, modular pieces of studio equipment together and really actually make us, you don't even have to compromise on sound, even if you're, working with very little. Um, it was really eye-opening to me that like that's what a studio is. There's no difference between your basement and a studio other than, yeah, maybe they have sophisticated acoustical treatment and yeah, they have more vintage recording gear, but you can get so close to the sound of your dreams by really careful use of just a few things and you can connect them all together and that was I'm still reeling from that discovery. Like it's just really cool that no one has to give you a license to do that.
Right. And I think you make a good point bringing up, 2009 was when you're around the time you were in high school. You also have like when you're younger, you had an advantage that you don't have when you're an adult is that you have more free time to just sit and
Yeah,
figure out. And I mean, and especially like now that we have the internet, you can just go on YouTube or find tutorials about how to set everything up, and then you can just hang out in your room for however long until you get it to work. And I think, it is
yeah,
that is such an inspiring thing too when you're young to just be able to plug away and not have to worry about uh,
yeah.
going to work or anything else. So I think that's
But
cool.
yeah, and there's something to be said about revenge work. They call it like revenge procrastination or whatever. I think there's
Yeah.
definitely something to be said about spending all day at school or spending all day at work and then coming home and feeling, I think it's a little harder with work, but it definitely more so with school, coming home and you're just so fired up to use every morsel of time, even more morsels of time than you really rightfully have if you're like staying up late or something,
Mhm.
to do what you want to do. It has a way of firing you up that I think some adults miss out on when they don't have that obligation anymore.
Yeah, I think, and I am a creative person as well. Like this is kind of a hobby of mine, but I also like to draw and do other things. But I think, that time as an adult, it's super important as well to create the time, even if it sometimes takes, staying up until past midnight when you got to go to work the
Hmm.
next morning. But when you have that time when you can just fully immerse yourself into whatever art or hobby that you're working on, music or whatever. I think, that is something that I feel like gets lost with age. We get more kind of like used to just coming home and turning on the TV and going to bed. And not that like that's fine too, but I think there's something very special about, having that drive, that revenge procrastination thing. I think that's
Yeah,
important.
it's definitely important.
Yeah, it keeps your brain going because then, like, I don't know about you, but sometimes, like, then when I finally have downtime or I'll be at work, then I'll have an idea of, like, okay, this is what I need to do next. And I think,
Yeah,
it gives you something to kind of look forward to. And I think that's an important thing
yeah.
to have.
It's yeah, it's sustaining for sure.
And did you figure out how to do self-recording at home before your dad? Like, what did he think when you took the mic that he couldn't figure out and then you got it to work? Was he pretty impressed?
Oh, for sure, yeah. I mean, my truly very first recording experience was one where he was engineering because when I was 6 years old, he bought a direct to CD multi-track recorder from Guitar Center
Oh
that
gosh.
you would literally plug, up to four microphones into it and press record and it would it would record what you're playing directly onto a CD, which was really still feels so futuristic and amazing. Um, so uh I think as far as me getting more into the technical side of it and using equipment that he wasn't as interested in using, I've always been a computer kid and uh and it's that simple. I've just really gravitated to computers and
Me too.
my dad my dad likes computers, but not like that. So it's a yeah, it's a different thing.
Were you the designated child that if somebody's computer wasn't working or their printer was busted, you were called to fix it?
Yeah, still am. And even to my brother Sammy's chagrin because he's like, I'm just as capable. Why don't you guys ask me? And I'm like, just be glad no not everyone asks you, okay?
No, I feel that. Yeah, I was born in 2000, so I was, I had that kind of computer upbringing and gosh, my
hmm
whole life and even now like my mom will text me, my phone's not connected to the printer. How do I do this? And
Yeah.
I kind of feel like the geek squad sometimes.
Yeah,
Wait, oh,
which it's nice to be able to help, but it can be overwhelming at
and
times.
sometimes you don't have the answers. I mean, especially like
Yeah.
with working from like Mac to PC, I don't know anything about that. I can't.
Well, and answers are getting harder to come by because it's like mechanics used to be able to just look at the engine and do something about it, but now they're all full of proprietary parts and fancy opaque black box computers, and I feel like the same thing is making it harder for us to help our relatives because it's not just everything's getting locked down and more opaque and more difficult to diagnose technologically. So it's not your fault.
Oh yeah, it's definitely a struggle. And so are we still good on time? Because I had like a couple more questions.
Sure, yeah, that's fine.
All right, yeah. So I wanted to talk about, of course, like you had a very cool childhood. I mean, music was always around your house. I mean, besides Wilco, besides your dad's music, what was your musical, like what music was really inspiring to you growing up? I like to ask everybody this question, and I know because you have a different experience because of your parents. Was there any, like, when did you kind of get to form your own music taste? Like when you went to the age where you heard a song and you're like, oh, this is what I like to listen to now, or you were starting to buy CDs or go to shows. Like, what was that like for you? Because I'm sure, like, ever since you were little, you said you were always watching concerts and videotapes, and I'm sure even on the road with your dad, you got to see a lot of cool bands that they opened for or shared bills with. I want to hear more on how that upbringing was like for you.
hmm Well, the first stuff was everything my dad was playing for me on the way to preschool, like Guided by Voices and Captain Beefheart and Elastica and The Who and so like my first experiences were, you know, playing along to a ton of records in the basement on drums and playing along to Who records. I was also playing along to like ridiculous hardcore. This sounds kind of pretentious, but it's just a fact. Playing along to like hardcore noise records because my babysitter at the time, her boyfriend was the tour manager for a lot of European hardcore noise bands, and I think what are they called? Oil or something? I haven't listened to them probably literally in like 25 years,
Oh my gosh.
but he would give me all of the CDs of the bands that he was tour managing, so I'd play along to that. My dad also introduced me to Deerhoof in like 2001. So I was playing along to Deerhoof records constantly and listening to Greg Saunier's drumming um, almost before anything else. That's like one of the most foundational things that I ever listened to. But I think what your question is really getting at is like when did I discover other stuff outside of that nest? And that really happened, at school and at summer camp. And I got into things that everybody my age was into, like Flo Rida and Jay-Z. And I also got into Alkaline Trio.
Oh, I love Alkaline
And
Trio. I love Matt Skiba.
yeah, yeah,
Uh-huh.
I used to listen to Alkaline Trio to pump up for shows before my band The Blisters was playing shows when we were like 12 years old or whatever. And I was in and it's funny because we were just on the road with Oats, Casey's band, listening
Uh-huh.
to stuff from our childhood, and we were listening to Green Day's American Idiot because I don't think there's a single American person our age from 25 to 35 who wasn't obsessed with that record.
Oh, that was a
Um,
huge part of my childhood. I was like nine in the back
yeah,
seat with my headphones on, listening to all of that. Yeah.
yes. That, oh, and The Darkness, because my bandmate
Uh-huh.
Henry's dad gave me permission to land by The Darkness, which has, I believe, in a thing called love.
Yes.
Uh,
Uh-huh.
the White Stripes was huge for
Mhm.
me. My babysitter burned me a CD, like a mixtape of a bunch of White Stripes bootlegs
Oh
that
my gosh.
sounded like they'd been downloaded and re-downloaded like 1,000 times because they were so poor, in such poor quality, but it was like a really cool sound. So yeah, stuff like that, and ultimately pretty minimal. Didn't get off of the out of the camp too much. Most of the things that I listened to then and listen to now are stuff that is pretty compatible with like, my dad's ever wide-ranging tastes. But yeah, summer camp will really put just about anything in your media diet.
Yeah, that's true. And when you're just like forced to talk to other kids and then you hear them reference enough things, you're like, all right, did they ever get into the music that you were listening to? Like, do you bring your
Oh
CDs to summer
no.
camp, or was that just like not the jam?
It's so funny you say that because I have literally never even the thought has never even occurred to me until this very second that I could have showed music I was listening to other kids. That is, I'm very taken aback that that wasn't. I think it's because I was aware of how different it was, and I had no
Yeah.
interest. Maybe I was embarrassed because I was, at summer camp, I was listening to Akron Family and
Uh-huh.
Neil Young
Uh-huh.
and like all sorts of stuff on my iPod, and it was a very private thing. And I think I already knew that it was kind of weird. I think I was proud of that difference, honestly, but
Yeah.
I didn't think that anyone else would be interested in it, and I didn't see much value in
Mhm.
showing a kid. Also, we were just listening on earbuds. So like it was before the age of
Mhm.
Bluetooth speakers.
Yeah, when you could only listen
So
to your iPod with the wired headphones, and if you like
yeah.
left them at home and you get an iPod Nano, the only way that you could still listen to it is if you had a speaker dock.
Yeah, and no one really had those until later on.
No,
So
yeah, that was like really hard to come by. And or like you would have the wire headphones and then they would break and then you had to keep twisting them and hope they would last for the rest of the trip.
Yeah. But in college, I definitely did become interested in sharing records that I was into. And that's why I got into college radio, like what you're doing, because I was just like sharing records back and forth with my roommate across the hall and or whatever dorm mate. We decided to make a show together and
Oh,
I
I didn't know
discovered
you
how
had your own college radio show. That's awesome.
yeah, it was so fun. And I think it's such a valuable thing to try to spread around records that you come across. I think it's like a very helpful thing to do.
Well, thank you. Yeah, and I think it is like, I feel like with streaming, it's not like a lost art, but it's definitely less common. And I think, even just like telling people that I have a show, people get intrigued and it allows like people to download this app, Radio FX, that our station's on, but a bunch of other stations are on there too. And like, even at our
Hmm.
station at Ole Miss, I mean, everybody has a different show that's about a different thing. And I think it builds this cool community of, oh, if you don't know what you want to listen to, here's all
Yeah,
of these different people that all have completely different tastes. Nobody has like
yeah,
nobody's playing the exact same thing. There might be common songs or anything, but the themes and the
yeah,
overall variety is
yeah.
very different. And I think that's so cool that you were a part of that too.
Totally, yeah. I discover so much music from listening to college radio in Chicago all the time. And I think it's unfortunately I think the advent of streaming just makes it more important,
Yeah.
even though it makes it harder to sustain because listenership is down. I think that
Mhm.
everyone who's sticking around and maybe relies on it some more gets even more value out of it.
Yeah, I definitely think it's important, especially because, it's streaming, you just you kind of get into your own algorithm and they try to kind of pump out just what's popular or certain streaming
Yeah.
services will just play the same thing over and over again. So I think it's good
Yeah.
to kind of have those outlets like radio, college radio to
Yeah.
provide like new recommendations to people. That's so awesome. What was your
Yeah.
show called?
It was called Hella Eloquent.
Oh, nice. Did you have like a certain theme? Would you play like full records or like a batch of songs?
Just a batch every week. My co-host Elijah and I would go back and forth playing records that we were listening to that week.
That's so cool. Awesome. And
Yeah.
so another project that we talked about briefly, but before we wrapped up, I wanted to highlight your girlfriend, Casey. She's in a band, Case
Hmm.
Oats. She just got
Hmm.
a new single out, 17. She got signed to a new record label. Is that correct? And you were just
Yeah.
playing South by Southwest. So what can you say about that album and when will it be out, if that's out yet? What can we expect? I loved the song. I
Hmm.
just watched the music video. I think it's great. I'll play it on
Oh,
air too,
thanks.
and I want to hear more about that. Now, how was it like collaborating with your girlfriend? Was that a special experience for you?
Yeah, I mean, I find it easier to write songs with Casey than I find it to write songs by myself.
Mhm.
She writes a lot of it by herself, but a lot of the material for this forthcoming record, Casey um would start and then bring to me to change it or add some parts or help just finishing something. And I found that to be a really fun process. And then when we recorded it together, um, I love, arranging songs and putting it all together and trying to find a sonic identity for the songs that feels honest to us. So I loved every step of that process. And the album is not announced yet, but you can count on
Okay.
one coming. I mean, I don't know. We're still coming to terms with the fact that it's not just in our heads anymore, like in a good way. It's been really, really, really exciting that Merge Records sees such potential in it and that they like the songs and they like the way
Yeah.
we recorded them. So um yeah, we're very grateful.
That's so exciting. I'm happy for you guys.
Yeah,
That sounds awesome.
thank you.
And yeah, the single's called 17. The music video's out. I'll put that link in the description too with everything so everybody can check that out. And then you also, I can't believe I didn't even mention this as well. You have your own solo music. You
Oh
have an
yeah.
EP and you had a song that came out last year. Is that
Hmm.
kind of, are you gonna still working on your own solo work, or is that kind of on the back burner
Yeah,
right now with everything you have going on? Can we expect more solo songs from you?
definitely. I've got, probably every musician has a vault of anywhere ranging from dozens to hundreds of songs they've written or recordings they've started or even fully finished, material. I'm definitely one of those people, and I've got a lot of stuff that I have squirreled away and work on every so often. Yeah, I've been prioritizing other people's records and now the Oats record for a long time, but I'm very, very interested in putting out this stuff and on creating new stuff by myself. It's a really it's nice to have an outlet where as much as I love collaborating and love every single person I collaborate with, sometimes you just need a project where you're a totalitarian dictator, answering to no one and moving exactly at your own pace and all of that. So and discover just the thrill of discovering stuff by yourself in that process and doing it so swiftly because there's no committee is is uh is really fun. Um, it can also lead you down it can make you stop in your tracks if you even without a committee you can end up being really indecisive. And that's why some people end up, deciding to just bring other people in after all. Anyway, the answer
No, it's
is
just so
yeah,
interesting.
I'll have more music out sometime in the future. I'm always just figuring out the right time and yeah, I fall prey to some fears that and some perfectionism about when the right time or the right presentation for my own songs is. Um but uh but I I fully intend to share some more of my own things I've been working on.
That's exciting. And I think you make a good point there too. And I was thinking when you were saying all that, because when you do collaborative work, it's mainly just like drums and engineering and producing. And you are a writer, you write a lot of, you have your own blog, you have the books that we talked about. You had the observation series, which I thought was really cool. It was just kind of like a writing exercise where you just write
Yeah.
down what you were seeing. So is it nice to have just like a personal outlet where you can blend your writing with your music side and be able to do that all under your name? I'm sure that's definitely liberating creatively to have that.
Yeah, I mean, I look at them as fulfilling two different things to some extent because
Hmm.
I think the mind where I'm trying to convey ideas very clearly and interestingly in prose is different than the mind where I'm uh writing lyrics, but but they are fulfilling at the in the end they are fulfilling in a really similar way.
Wow, that's really cool. And so to wrap things up, you're about to
Hmm.
go on tour with
Hmm.
Waxahatchee and Wilco. What can we
Hmm.
expect?
Expect we'll be playing Tiger's Blood songs, we'll be playing some Plain songs. Um our uh beloved friend Clay Frankel is staying off the road this year, so Liam Kazar, the musician I've mentioned a few times, is
Hmm.
filling in on or is now joining the group on guitar and background vocals, and so people can expect to see him, and he's a great musician. Um, yeah, there's just a bunch of songs, kind of like it's a really high energy show. I think some people think like, oh, Waxahatchee, it's like indie rock and plaintive sometimes, or it's like folk music. But
Uh,
I think people are sometimes pleasantly surprised at how high energy the show that we play is, and I really love that about it because
mhm.
I don't know, I actually work up a sweat, which isn't typical for me, playing like with the material that I'm usually playing. So, It's really fun. It's a really fun show, and I mean, I don't even need to say anything about Wilco.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's that's I mean, that's home for me. I'm not playing Wilco. That's Glenn Coachy, the
Yeah.
long time permanent drummer of Wilco. But yeah, you won't be disappointed by seeing Wilco either,
And is it a
obviously.
co-headline type thing, or is Waxahatchee more like playing an opening set and Wilco will be a longer one?
Wilco will be longer. They're the headliners and Waxahachie's direct support.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I saw Wilco. This will be my second show. I saw them for the first time right before I graduated undergrad. It was like 2 weeks or so before my graduation. I just kind of gathered enough money to go get a ticket and go to the show. I just went by myself because everybody was working on finals, and I had finished mine early. And I saw the show. I was just like completely blown away. I mean, I feel like they're a band that everybody should see live, and I've never seen
Yeah.
Katie before, so. I'm super excited. I've heard only great things about that band as well. But yeah, it's before we wrap up, do you have anything else that I maybe forgot to mention that you want to highlight?
No, I just want to say thank you for having me and being such like a uh, caring sharer of music. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you.